Hello and welcome to Lesson 5, Part 2. We are going to talk about finger size and shape. Short fingers, long fingers, the finger shapes, finger thicknesses. Very exciting stuff. So the finger length, shape and size are taken into account when analysing the hands, and because we can see the fingers easily, it makes evaluating the characteristics instant and simple. In a palm reading, these clues to the character make the interpretation more precise and accurate. However, though, many people will not fall into a category where their fingers are unusually long or short, but rather average. So it's fair to say that if the fingers appear balanced to the palm in length and size, then the character is likewise. So it's the ideal hand. But first we'll talk about short fingers. Here in this image you can see that compared to the palm, these fingers are quite short with a long palm. The fingers are classed as short when they appear shorter in proportion to the rest of the hand, with the exception of the earth shape, where the whole hand appears short. If you remember in the earlier lesson, the earth hand was the square palm with the short fingers. And as with long fingers, there are varying degrees of shortness, with the qualities being more pronounced in the very short fingers. So that means the shorter the fingers are, the more the qualities will stand out that we are going to talk about. So the meanings of these short fingers. The short fingers suggest that the physical or intuitive drives dominate the use of the intellect. However, this doesn't indicate the person's ability or actual intelligence, but simply the way in which the person functions in their thinking and attitude. They are passionate, restless, and impatient. They give no time for details, and everything needs to be done fast. With a lack of interest in trivial matters, on a positive note, they have the ability to get to the point and see the whole picture. So I hope you understand what I mean by driven by physical and intuitive drives. It means that they feel things more on an intuitive level rather than rationalizing everything. They might say to you, well, I feel that this is a better idea, or I sense that this is a better idea, rather than saying, I know this is a better idea through a fact. What I mean. So the short fingers are about speed and action. They possess abundance of energy usually based on the palm being larger, and lots of enthusiasm as long as their fingers are not soft. They are physically capable people. The short fingers can depict someone who's quite brave, often impulsive in their actions. Hence they can be accident prone or easily make mistakes. They're happy and lively by nature, and if they're also thin, it shows someone more tactful with a need for freedom. Thick, short fingers, however, show a quick mind, but with a blunt approach, not as tactful as the thin fingers type. Long fingers, whether long in relation to the palm or with an extended palm, reveals someone who is more mentally than physically active. Technically, they are slow-moving and slow-talking, but their mind is a driving force for their life purpose, carefully investigating every option in whatever they do. So they have an eye for detail, and they cautiously and deliberately ensure a job is well done, although they may get preoccupied with ideals and beliefs. Thick fingers. When the fingers are thick throughout the entire length, and if also firm in its consistency, it implies physical and mental strength, as well as strength of character. The thick fingers don't always represent the body size and weight, but if they are thick, soft and flabby, it can be due to laziness or obesity. So, more about the thick, firm fingers. The thick-fingered folk are typically outgoing and boisterous, but they are honest and straightforward. Their honesty can, however, express with little consideration for other people's feelings or lack of tact. So they can be quite blunt or harsh with their words. They will just spit out what's on their mind without considering the other person might become offended. And the thick-fingered person won't care if the other person becomes offended. So they have that in consideration. And yeah, it doesn't matter what you say to them. They probably won't care. So anyway, far from being delicate and graceful as well, their unrefined nature can make them seem crude. However, they are largely down to earth. They're physically driven and sensual with the love of nature and animals, especially if the hand is also thick and firm, the palm that is. So the firm, thick fingers, if they're also short, it shows someone who likes to get jobs done really quickly without a fuss. They can have a quick temper though. Thick, soft fingers. If they're only thick at the base, such as this image here, the material world will rule over the business and mental side. We will be talking about the different sections of the finger in another lesson, but we have 3 segments of the finger which all have a different meaning. So here you can see they're only thick at the bottom. The top seem quite normal. So if they're only at the base, they will be very materialistic. They love eating and drinking, obviously. Thick at the base as well as soft and flabby. They have a love of beautiful things, a taste for food, drink, luxuries. They are rather money-oriented people. If only 1 or 2 fingers appear thick, it shows strength in that area that the finger represents. For instance, if you remember the meaning of the index, the Jupiter finger, and the meaning of Saturn, the middle finger, the index finger stands for ambition and Saturn stands for rules and responsibility. So this person does respect rules and does have responsible attitude, is probably not hugely ambitious, but her consideration for herself, her ego, is quite strong. Thin fingers. So going to the opposite side now, the thin fingers are obviously depict the opposite of what the thick, firm fingers. So they show a more quiet, a more gentle nature, not quite as boisterous. So these people are open and friendly and patient and tactful, opposite of the thick fingers where they were not very tactful. So they're mostly very self-disciplined and generous, and they tend to put others' needs before their own needs. If thin and also soft, it shows a lack of physical strength. So people with lean fingers tend to be mostly intellectual and analytical, but on a fire hand, they can also be athletic because the energy in the palm is stronger. So the thin fingers are usually thin at the base phalanges, which gives wider spaces between each finger. Like here, there's wide spaces between those fingers. So the larger the gaps, the more need for freedom and sense of adventure for these people. Making money generally is not that important to them in a worldly sense, only in a way that they can afford to buy what they want. If only 1 or 2 of the fingers are thin, it shows weakness in the area that the finger represents. So say, for instance, here, they're all quite thin, but say, for instance, if the ring finger was quite thin just by itself, then it would show weakness in the area of creativity and sense of style. But we'll talk more about individual fingers in another lesson. But today we're just talking about all the fingers as a whole. So then there's another type of fingers called knotted fingers, where the knuckles stick out. Usually the knuckles stick out at the top joint and at the middle joint. So they belong to individuals with good concentration and investigative skills. So they analyze everything. They have quite a shrewd mind, and they like to judge everything and everyone. They usually have a good common sense. Not many will believe superstitions and things like that. So they're also rarely sentimental or emotional, since they use their head rather than their heart in their way of thinking. So you could say that the knuckle functions like a speed bump, where the thoughts get slowed down for consideration. Say if you were travelling along this finger and then there's a speed bump, you've got to go over it, slows you down for a little bit, and then you've got another speed bump and it slows you down. So the thoughts, like on a short finger, run quickly and get to the end quickly. On long fingers, the thoughts take a longer time to get there, so they can appreciate details more. And the knuckled fingers, their thoughts are slowed down over the knuckle. They're commonly seen on elderly people though, but that's because they may have gradually over the years become more critical or obstinate. So they've learned to look before they leap, so to speak. And they don't like rushing into things. So the knuckled fingers on old people are not just because they may have lost weight or something. Yeah. Often they keep most of their thoughts to themselves. They're not kind of people that quickly speak out about everything when they have big knuckles. They are generally thoughtful folk, but you don't really know what they're thinking about. You don't really know if they like you. A little bit more about the knotted fingers. When the first joint is visible, it represents the mental system and intelligence, giving philosophical outlook. The first joint meaning the top one. So the second joint, meaning the middle one, represents the material form and order. So when both these knuckles protrude, you have someone who's very skeptical, especially if with square fingertips. And we will talk more about fingertips in the next lesson as well. So if they have spatulate fingertips, which we'll show in the next lesson where they bulge at the tip, they can be very obstinate and cranky. With a bulging knuckle and a bulging fingertip, it won't be easy to convince them of anything without hard evidence. Smooth fingers, where there's no protruding knuckles on the sides of the finger, they appear quite even without any bulges anywhere. So the smooth fingers are mainly found in young people, but when they belong to an adult, it shows someone who's guided by their impulse of their heart and not the reasoning mind. So they will have more sentimental and spontaneous nature compared to one with knotted fingers. So they are likely to believe in superstition and magic before a person with protruding knuckles. The smooth fingers, they don't see a need to slow down to analyze when they make their decisions. So they do make up their minds fast. So basically, if you've got a smooth finger that's also short, they are going to be quick thinking and quick on decision making. They don't like to slow down. So I'll give you an example of someone who has smooth, short fingers, and they go, I'll tell you, it's a male person I know. So this male person goes shopping with his wife, who has short fingers with protruding knuckles. So she likes to stop and look at every item and consider and think what it is that she wants about it, and he rushes through. He'll know what he wants, puts it in a trolley, zoom down the aisle, makes up his mind, doesn't have to hesitate to think about what he's going to buy. So they act on inspiration and then tend to rely on their intuitive impressions as well, just to help them understand everything. So in speech, unlike knotted fingers, the words will flow effortlessly as their thoughts run smoothly and efficiently. So these people are going to talk your head off, whereas the person with the knuckles will sit there and think about what they're going to say and then only say a few words. Somebody with smooth fingers will probably just read a whole book out to you. Anyway, their first impressions direct them. They are guided by their first impression, but they are generally agreeable and quite pleasant to be around. They see and appreciate beauty and art, but if they were to choose art as their career, and in order to be successful in the arts, they would require some aspects that add reasoning qualities, such as a strong thumb, strong meaning long and well-balanced size. We'll talk more about the thumb in another lesson, but also preferably if the thumb has a squarish looking tip on the finger. For these people, looks and style and sense of dress is usually an important part of who they are. It's quite important for them to be wearing the appropriate clothing to wherever they are going or whatever they are doing and looking just fine. So if the smooth fingers are short, they belong to those who are quick thinking, like I mentioned before. They can lack patience in details. They prefer to take the short route wherever possible. So here we are. If they have a conic or a pointed fingertip, they will be idealistic and possibly artistic. If with square fingertips, the impulsiveness will have more practical quality, so they won't be as idealistic with their decisions. If the smooth fingers are with soft, flabby skin and a small thumb, they will struggle in areas of drive and determination. So we'll do a summary of the finger shape and size. Long fingers, in general, like to think carefully. They take care of details. Short fingers like to think quickly, not concerned about details. If the fingers are thick and firm, this refers to long or short fingers. They have physical and mental strength, but they can be blunt and quite impatient. The shorter the fingers are, the more impatient they are. If they are thick and soft, they have a large appetite, they can be lazy, or they might procrastinate. Sometimes illness can give the fingers a soft feel. If they have a long-term condition, they may have the soft flabbiness to them as well. So that you need to see other features. Thin fingers, they are generally patient and self-disciplined and generous. Money is not that important to them. Thin and soft, they may lack physical or mental strength. Knotted fingers, analytical, a slow thinker and speaker. So there you have it, one more. Smooth fingers, a quick thinker, intuitive and idealistic. So there you have it. That is the end of lesson 5. You can contact me at sari@destinypalmistry.com if you have any questions.